Hey guys, kinggath here. This video is going to be super technical. I'm going to be talking about a lot of scripting things, and it's designed for mod authors. Though, if you're just curious about how Fallout 4 works and whatnot, feel free to stick around. But the overall point of this video is to go over the problems I found in Fallout 4, go over Canary, what it does on a technical level, and go over some of the scripts and stuff, and talk about this problem and why I created this mod and what I aim to do about it. So a couple weeks ago, I found out that my save file was really screwed up, and I only figured it out by chance. I was just trying to play with some settlements. Found out a feature I anticipated to work wasn't working, so I just started investigating. I was like, okay, it's probably just a bug. My code's pretty complex, probably just something stupid I did. And then I couldn't get it working, so I started digging into the save file itself. And fortunately, because this is for a YouTube series I had a bunch of save files for it. I keep a crazy amount. So I pulled out a few here to show you guys. But I found the problem. I'm on episode 15 this week, so this is months ago that this happened. But I found the problem. You can see it yourself right here in the save file size differences. We went from 55 megs down to 19 megs, so clearly big issue. What's interesting is that these two save files are 1 minute apart in game time. The load orders are a little bit different because I will frequently update mods, and then Vortex's crazy design it will just seems to randomly auto sort on me. I don't know why it does, so the load orders were a little bit different in that regard. And then I think I installed 2 or 3 mods. But I will go into some troubleshooting steps that I went through to make sure that you guys can be positive that I did my due diligence here. I will also say that it wasn't just my own save files. I did find other save files from users that had a similar issue. So in my due diligence to find out and verify this problem, which I guess I should first show you guys what the problem is outside of just, save file data loss is obviously a problem. Well, to do that, let me open up in Fallroom. If you've never used Fallroom, this tool is amazing for troubleshooting. If we load into our episode 04 start one here, there's a little section on here called scripts. And if you load up any save file in it, this will have a list of every single script installed by a mod, or that's currently active by a mod in the person's load order. The little number there, I believe, is the number of items with that particular script on it. So this does include namespaces. If you don't know what a namespace is, that's just a subfolder where a script is. Well, all of Sim Settlement stuff are stored in 3 folders. There's one called Auto Builder, one called KG Helpers, and one called Sim Settlements. Well, you can see we're in the AUs. There's no Auto Builder. If I go down to the Ks, there is no KG Helper. If I could remember how to spell H-I-J-K. Let's see. Below the I's. Here we go. There's no KG Helper. And if we go further down, you'll see that there's Sim Settlements Conqueror, but no Sim Settlements. So big red flags to me. And so that means that all of the items that had those on there I'm not going to be able to find them in here. So normally you would be able to find a item and like an object reference with a particular script. You'd be able to find it again by that. It's not going to be listed under here because those are gone. So I just to show you guys, you'll see there's nothing with Sim Settlements around it. Obviously there's Conqueror stuff, which is another thing that made me think like, okay, well, there's something wrong here because Conqueror depends on Sim Settlements. So Sim Settlements must have been loaded. So my first instinct was, oh, maybe I just accidentally loaded the game without Sim Settlements. But as you can see here, it is in the save file. It was loaded. In addition, the next thing I assumed was, okay, I must have loaded without the BA2 file. Well, I think as all you guys know, you can't actually load the game. If a mod has a BA2 file with a substantial number of assets in it, the game won't load. It'll just crash when you attempt to load without it. I think a lot of us experienced that with Creation Club content for the first time. Well, it turns out that's the case for mods as well, is that once there's enough data that it's looking for, you just won't be able to load the game without the BA2. So I couldn't have forgotten to load the BA2. So then my next assumption was, okay, perhaps it was one of the mods that I installed. So I meticulously went through and rebuilt my load order exactly as it was in these. I even used the dates to re-download old versions of all mods to make sure that I had the exact same load order from this date, from 120, that I did on 2.2. So I basically I went and built my 2.2 load order and loaded up my 120 save file to see if the issue occurred again. It did not. I then tried to do dumb things. I was like, okay, well, what could have gone wrong? So now I've got my load order. What else could have gone wrong? I started doing things like intentionally juggling the load order in a way that shouldn't make sense. I tried using older versions of mods. I tried mismatching mods. I would take BA2 files from one version and ESPs or ESLs or ESMs from another version. I tried removing mods. I tried adding a bunch of new mods. I tried pushing beyond the mod limit that's naturally supported. I think it's something like 500 BA2 files. I just did everything I could think of to make a terrible situation and never got this issue to repeat. So that leads me to believe the issue is likely happening in one of two circumstances. One is on load. The game is failing to load the scripts from particular mods. That's the other thing I should note about this issue is that this wasn't just sim settlements that was lost. There was a lot more data than that. We didn't have 35 megs of data from sim settlements that got lost. There were other mods that got lost data. A lot of them were just little arbitrary mods I would never have thought even had script data in them. So all sorts of random scripts were lost from this. So I think that either it's on game load, and this could mean that it's a problem with F4SE. But I don't think so. And the reason I don't think so is because this issue, once I realized the depth of this issue, the fact that timers were canceled, the fact that data saved on objects was all gone and reset back to default, it explained tons of bugs that I've seen reported in sim settlements for a long time that I was never able to replicate. So I think this is actually a base game issue because I don't think that this is limited to F4SE users. My gut says this is probably related to the change to Fallout 4 to support ESL, but I have no way to verify that without just looking back through tons and tons of reports and trying to piece it together. I don't think I'd be able to. But that's beside the point. Right now, we've just got to try and figure out what's causing this, but at least I was able to monitor for it, and I'll explain how in a minute. So data gets wiped out, and I lost my train of thought there. So but basically, I've verified that what data gets wiped out, and I figured out how to check for it. I know, I was talking about my theory. So the other theory was if it's not during on load where it's failing to load up scripts, then it's on the moment of saving. It's failing to save a certain set of scripts. And then all items that were supposed to have that script in the save file because of the way the save file structure is, lose that. And then of course they lose their data then in the save file because it doesn't have that script recorded on those items. So it's one of those two things. To me, neither one makes a ton of sense. I would think that if anything, it would be just some scripts from some mods would get lost, not all of them from entire mods. Like I didn't find a single example of a mod losing its scripts or only lost some of them. It was always an all or nothing thing, which is how I came up with the Canary solution, which I'll go over with you guys here. So I don't know what's causing this. I have my theories. But this is why I created Canary, is I want to kind of crowdsource solving this problem. And I think the best way we can get to the bottom of this is to create a reproducible steps, because once we have those, I can give that information to Bethesda, we can get that information to the F4SE team, and people can actually make some meaningful progress toward a solution. Because right now, I'm just grasping at straws. I proposed my potential causes, but I don't know why those would happen. I don't even know if I'm even in the right ballpark for what caused it. All I have right now are a handful of saves with an issue that I can see something bad happened, but I have no information about how it happened. So for now, my goal here with this is to notify players when this issue occurs in their save, so that they, while it's fresh in their mind, can talk to me. So like one of the things that happens in Canary, if they get the issue and they're on PC, because it wouldn't help on Xbox, is there's a how can I help option that they could choose on the message box. And that will ask them to send me that save file that has the issue and the previous save file to that. And then I'm hoping then when they contact me, I can respond to them, hey, if you got time for a chat, like let's talk about what you did that day that might have caused this. Just to try and narrow down, because one of the problems with my own save files that I have the issues, they were from months ago. So even though I tried my best to recreate the scenario, I might have missed something. I might have had a bad day. I tend to be very careful with these saves because they're for a long running Let's Play series on YouTube. I have a vested interest in keeping my save file safe, so I tend to be very careful. But it's hard to say for certain if I was. I could have had a bad day. So I need more information. Canary is going to help us get that information. So the way Canary works is it takes advantage of the fact that all script data is wiped out from entire mods at a time. So what it does is there's this monitor file that I have on the Canary page that you basically take and make your own copy of. and every one of them will have this particular property, and it's defaulting. It's not set by default, so it's going to default to 0. So what Canary does is, and to make sure that it can happen even if Canary itself loses its data, it's tied to the on-location change event. What it'll do is each time the player changes location, it will check if it's done attest this save load. So it has this helper file tracks the each time the game is loaded, and increments a counter. Then the next time a location change occurs, Canary will go through and check that this value is at a value it set during registration. So your mod will basically run its little save file monitor thing. It runs this API call to monitor for data loss. In the moment it does that, Canary records a const value to this iSave file monitor. Then in the subsequent loads of the game, the location trigger will go check all of your quests that registered to make sure that this value is still set to that constant value. If it's set to 0 instead, or some other value, I mean, if it ever came, I should actually check if it's some other value and give a different warning, because that means somebody was messing with it, which is no good. But I don't anticipate that ever happening. I don't know why anyone would be that kind of vindictive when we're all suffering from the same problem here. Anyway, I digress. The idea is that this value, if your mod lost all of its data, since you're keeping your own copy of this script you're putting it in your own folder, this is going to be your copy of the script. So for all intents and purposes, the game will treat this as your script in your mod. It's not looking for a script that's from Canary. This is a script that's on your mod and will only exist in your mod. Canary, that will then effectively, this should get reset to 0 in the save file if the save file has that issue, in the same way that I saw it in every other save that had it. So then Canary can check, it can see that that value got reset to 0, fire off a warning to the player. So that is the effect of what Canary's doing. That's how it's operating. It's taking advantage of the fact that this issue appears to wipe out all scripts from entire mods at a time. And so there's a benefit there. Like, we actually have a pattern in this issue that we can identify from scripts, because unfortunately, the method for identifying it in-game we can't do from a script. And the method for identifying it from in-game, I'll just type it in the middle of this screen so you guys can see here, but you basically pick one of your quests that you know is registering for remote events or has timers on it, and just run DPER and then the editor ID. So for example, in some settlements, I commonly use this quest to do stuff. So I ran this, found that all timers were gone, all remote event registration was gone. And then when I did SQV, I saw that all of the data was wiped out. So if you're looking for a way to check, in a save file, so say for example, in the future, some player comes to you, they have an issue with your mod that's completely unexplainable. And if whether you ask them, at this time now we can say, like, did you have Canary installed, blah, blah, blah. But if in this near term, or if you opt not to add support for Canary, which there's really there's no penalty to doing so. It doesn't add Canary as a hard requirement. It's just a little benefit. It takes like 2 minutes. I made another video for how you implement it. It takes like 2 minutes, adds no hard requirements. There's no cost to it. It's very lightweight. So I'm hoping any of you who find this important and are using scripts in your mods will take the time to add support for this, just to help us crowdsource. We can get more information faster, because the ultimate goal, we don't want to have this stupid mod. Ultimately, we want to have Bethesda fix this stupid problem. But we got to find a repeatable situation, or they're not going to move. And I understand, I wouldn't either if I were them. So we need to get them repeatable data, and the best way to do that is to find as many people having this issue as possible and collect data from them. So that's what we're trying to do here. But anyway, if in the meantime, while you're trying to troubleshoot issues, if you're ever curious, if you're maybe dealing with a save file that has this issue, you get a player to send you a save file, you can use these commands, the DPER, to dump information to your papyrus log about one of your quests, and you can see if it lost all of its registrations and timers. That's a big red flag that this occurred. You'll especially notice because the quest will still be running. And the actual reason the only reason I was able to come to this conclusion is because I happen to have one quest in some settlements that is set to run once and start game enabled. So all my other quests are either they don't start game enabled or they don't have run once checked. Like I only had one quest that happened to have both, and that was still running and all its registrations were lost. And that was like, okay, that's not possible. There's no scenario, there's no series of events where that can happen. The one series of events that I dreamed up where that could happen would be some other mod specifically targeting that quest and not even then, doesn't make sense. Really, the run one, because it was still running, The fact that it has the run once flag and all data is lost, there's no scenario that can happen. It doesn't make any sense, except for save file corruption or exe problems. Those are the only things I could think of that could have this, and this is what took me down this pathway. This was like days and days of late night troubleshooting and digging deep, trying to figure out what could have caused this before I realized that there must be something deeper going on here. But anyway, you can use these commands, obviously not the KG sim auto player, use your own quest to find information about your quest to find out if there's a problem. So this might lead to us solving a lot of random issues in save files that players bring to us that we had no idea how they had this happen. It's probably this is my assumption. So my hope is that Canary is going to draw out a lot of more reports where people will be able to bring me save files and information, and we can get to the bottom of this. We can figure out exactly what's causing it. I'm sure there's a pattern. It's very unlikely that this is just arbitrarily random. I mean, maybe it is. Maybe it's something to do with a particular bit somewhere that triggers, or maybe it has to do with something like if you hit a certain memory or RAM usage. I don't know. I'm so drawn at straws here, or grasping at straws here, because it's just so perplexing to me. I've never seen anything like this in Fallout, but. That's where we're at. Hopefully that makes sense to you all who are able to follow along with what the heck I'm talking about here. If you have any more information, or if you see a flaw in my logic, please contact me. I'm trying to make a big deal out of this to get help in detecting this issue so we can move on past it. Because personally, as somebody designing effectively, taking all of my time that I would normally put toward developing my own game and putting it into mods, this is a big deal to me. This is like saying, the foundation that you've been building on, expecting it to be fairly stable. And I know a lot of you are thinking, come on, a Bethesda game stable. I at least expect the save files to be stable enough so that players can invest some time and enjoy the game. But if we're working with a foundation that's this flawed, I don't know how much more I can continue at the level I've continued at unless we can find a solution to this. But I am at least hopeful now that this will limit the damage to a single play session. That's how I was able to sleep at night and continue working on my mods without just like throwing my hands up in frustration and quitting. So I would like to see this solved. I think any of you who are systems designers are probably right there with me and throwing your hands up and being very frustrated by this. But you can do your part by just taking the time, toss this monitor in so that we can collect more data. That's all we can do right now. But again, if you guys see a flaw in my logic, or you can think of some other tests I should do, I'm happy to discuss them with more people, because this is so bizarre. This seems impossible to me. I don't understand it. I don't like not understanding things. I would like to get to the bottom of this. So feel free to toss your comments, and I will happily engage on any of this until we can get this sorted out. All right, guys, take care.